Hey everyone, back for another review. Today we're doing the latest superhero movie because that's something we clearly never get tired of seeing. But this is actually a movie about superheroes that we want to see. We've been waiting 14 years for it. Pixar finally gave it to us. And I'm talking about none other than The Incredibles Part 2. The Incredibles Part 2 takes place literally right after the events of Part 1. We see what happens at the end with the battle with the Mole Man, and we see the ensuing carnage. The Incredibles are once again told that they cannot be superheroes, and they find out that the organization that was helping them be relocated once they slipped up is no longer going to be around, and everyone is on their own from now on. While that's happening, we have two billionaires who come into the movie to say, wait, we want the superheroes to come back. We need superheroes again. And there are two characters by the name of Winston Dever and Evelyn Dever, two brother and sister, who have a tragic backstory very similar to Batman. And they say, no, we want you guys to be super again. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus not on the destruction you cause after you help the world, but on the good that you do and why you're helping them. And the destruction is not necessarily because of you. You're actually helping causing less of it. So what happens is they decide that they set up a meeting with Frozone, who's returning, played once again by Samuel L. Jackson. They take Mr. Incredible, which is once again played by Craig T. Nelson, and they take Elastigirl, who's played by Holly Hunter. And they say, we decided to pick you three because you're the core superheroes, and we want one of you to be our go-to person so we can focus on you and then slowly help the rest of the supers get the chance to use their powers again in public. And by the trailers, you can tell they decide to choose Elastigirl. Obviously, Bob Parr, Mr. Incredible, takes this as a slight, and he's actually astounded that they wouldn't choose him, but they chose his wife. So with that, she decides to go to help them. And while she's going to help redeem supers, Bob has to stay at home and be a parent. And this movie's really good. I really enjoyed this. The voice casting was really good. Once again, you have Craig T. Nelson returning as Mr. Incredible, Holly Hunter as Elastigirl. You have the same character, Frozone, played by Samuel L. Jackson again. And we have the newcomers, who are Winston and Evelyn Dever, played by Bob Odenkirk and Christine Keener, respectively. And everyone does a solid job, a commendable job once again in their vocal performances. The movie, there's like 3 problems with the movie, and I'll get those over with so I can begin gushing about the movie. One, it's a sequel, so it kind of loses that new car smell, because some of the beats, since it does take place right after the first one, kind of repeat itself, at least for the first 20 minutes before they go into the second act. Also, the villain, the Screen Slayer, is kind of weak and is more or less abandoned in the movie about halfway through. And 3, the villain is very predictable. I pretty much knew, like, as soon as the character was introduced, that that's going to be the villain. But all jokes aside, the animation in this is gorgeous. I went to a double screening where they showed Part 1 first and then Part 2. You can really tell on the textures of the people's faces, on their hair, the way it moves, that the animation has been upped in these 14 years. Matter of fact, there are scenes from the first movie in this movie that they re-rendered, which makes it really... It's not jarring because it's still in the same universe and it still has the same look. It's just more textured, more layered. It's very well designed. The story does take a couple of very interesting commentaries. The whole point of DevTech wanting the supers is they want not only for the supers to come back, but they also want unity throughout the world. So you see supers from every creed, country, united to sign this treaty. So in a lot of ways it did remind me of an X-Men movie where they made the supers look like minorities. And they were like, well, we want to be inclusive to everyone. And this movie is very inclusive to everyone. There's a lot of different diverse characters throughout the movie. Not just Frozone is the only black person, maybe one in the background. There's a lot of different characters throughout the whole movie, and a lot of different character designs. Edna's back, and she was I really enjoyed her once again being voiced by Brad Bird, the director. And she's pretty good. The MVP of the movie obviously is going to be Jack Jack. Jack Jack has some really cool scenes, including a scene where he's fighting with a raccoon of all things. And it's not Rocket. That would be an interesting crossover though. But Jack Jack has a lot of scene-stealing moments. And because he's so layered with all his different superpowers that he has, it brings an interesting dynamic. I will give it credit when they flipped the switch this time between part 1 and part 2, where Mr. Incredible was doing all the action and Elastigirl was at home with the kids. In this movie, Elastigirl is the one who's chosen, and she's chosen for the reason that when she saves people, she causes less collateral damage than Mr. Incredible. And Mr. Incredible takes it kind of as a slight, but once he's as the father, he's like, okay, I'm going to show everyone that I can be well at this. That way I can go be a superhero. So I thought that was pretty cool. And he wasn't the complete mess of a father you get from those cliched movies where the father has to stay home. No, he wasn't. He was pretty good. He did some stuff good, some stuff bad, like any other parent. I will give them credit for that. Elastigirl, her storyline is okay, but it's really just a front for the third act. And in the third act, actually there are a couple of cool fight scenes. There's a fight scene with Elastigirl where she's in a room and the Screen Slayer is having all his lights that possesses people or hypnotizes people going off. And the contrast in that fight scene is really gorgeous looking. That scene alone might be worth paying 3D prices for. And then of course the last action beat on the boat is really tense, really dramatic. And I do admit that they actually do give people some time to shine. Like Jack gets some time, Elastigirl. Even Violet gets into a fight scene that's actually really well done. There's a number of new superheroes introduced into this movie for reasons, and because they're trying to get all the superheroes out into the world. So it's a very inclusive movie. I also like the fact that I don't want to say that yet because that would include a spoiler, but this is a really good movie. I had a lot of fun with it. The audience had a lot of fun with it. It reassures some of the values that were brought along from part 1 and makes up a couple of their own, including the still fight between the parents at the beginning on whether they should be using their powers and whether they shouldn't. The ending also does do the same thing the first one does, where you can see another sequel. Hopefully we don't have to wait 14 years for it. I probably scored this a notch below the first one because once again it's not as original as the first one, and the villain wasn't as memorable. But then again, of course that's going to be hard to follow after someone like Syndrome, who is more or less a villain icon for not only for his role but his voice, as Jason Lee portrayed the voice of Syndrome. But this is a real good movie. Go out of your way to see it with your kids. Hell, you can go see it alone if you're an adult, and especially if you like the first one. So this is a high recommendation from me. I give it an 8.9. Did you see The Incredibles? Do you plan on seeing it this weekend? I know I have to see it again with Jeff. So If you saw it, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're excited to see it, let me know below. Of course, like, subscribe, and we'll be back later this week for another movie review. So, thank you very much, and until next time.